Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's tech guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, remember, these are all companies. They're all great companies. You should be using them as an AD. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Tech Tuesday guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. You've heard me say many times, probably one of the best equipment purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. You know, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Go to huddle.com, join the 100 million fans and users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. Let's also say thank you to Home Campus. Scheduling, rosters, results, facilities. Home Campus does all of these things, does it better, does it faster than other platforms. And their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com to get started. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Beacon Creative and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Now, Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for over a decade, but Beacon Creative goes to the next level. Beacon Creative is a content creation service that's going to take your school's data, your stories, your student athletes, your history, and come up with compelling narratives that you can then put into your social media platforms. I want you to email John Townsend, and you can do that at John, John, at beaconwalloffame.com. Check out Beacon Creative and find out all the great things they can do for you. Let's also say thanks to our friends at Hometown. Hometown continues to be a game changer with their suite of solutions that includes things like, well, digital ticketing, of course, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction? The list just goes on and on. Whether you're a principal, an athletic director, even a head coach, Hometown is going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. That's hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Booster Hub, the #1 booster club software. You know, you need boosters that can deliver results, not headaches. And if you've got a weak system, volunteer turnover can really leave your program vulnerable. But Booster Club takes care of that. Sponsorship payments, meal fees, concession stand sales, spiritware sales, all of that is going to flow through one secure system. And that gives your boosters more time to support you as fans. And isn't that what you want? Go to boosterhub.com for more information. Let's also thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's degree through Ohio, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And while they were earning their degree, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Let's also say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team turn you into a social media marketing guru. Gipper's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Your athletic department is doing great work. Your kids, your coaches, they deserve to get noticed. Use Gipper to help raise their profile and your school's profile on social media. Go to Gipper.com and don't forget to mention the podcast. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, in my school, we use surveys for everything, for student athletes, for coaches, even for parents. And the information that came back on those surveys, almost always over the top positive. And having that positive data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, sometimes even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got a real cool guest today. It's also a book promo, which regular listeners know we do frequently. We're going to be talking with Bill Taylor. Bill has a tremendous background in athletics, primarily as a coach, very successful coach. He's also the founder of an organization called Sports Conflict Lab, and he's also the author of a recently released book called Managing Sports Conflict. We're going to talk about all of that and more, but Bill Taylor, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Very excited to be here.
Well, again, you and I were talking earlier, it's a busy time for ADs. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us your quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Take us on your journey as in athletics that's kind of brought you now to working or founding Sports Conflict Lab.
Yeah, I'm from Washington State originally. So I was born in Everett, Washington, raised in Lake Stevens, Washington, and kind of spent a good chunk of my life there. I ran for my high school. I ran community college, Bellevue Community College, and that's where I got the coaching bug. Just found that I really enjoyed the sport. I've enjoyed the mental aspects, especially of cross country and track and field. And so I went back to my high school, did some coaching there, found out I really did have a gift for it. It inspired me to go back to college to try to, I hadn't finished my degree, so I went to Westmont College for a little bit in Santa Barbara, ran out of money, went back home and started coaching college by actually approaching different schools. Northwest ended up being the one that accepted this idea of starting their programs from scratch in cross country and track. I don't know why anybody would let some dude just show up and start a program, but they did. And I was silly enough to think I should win a national championship there without any resources, without any history. But I think sometimes being silly is good. And it did take 9 years there, but we won an NAI National Women's Cross Country Championship. And then I kind of took a little time off and wanted to regroup and make sure where I wanted to be, and decided I really wanted to coach Division I and take the stuff, the culture, and the way I did things at Northwest and see if I could apply that at the Division I level. And so we made a dramatic change, moved from Washington State to Nashville, Tennessee. I finished some schooling at Belmont University and worked as an assistant coach for 1 year there. And then immediately, well, not immediately, at the end of the summer, I got hired at Lipscomb University, which is a big rival of Belmont, actually, or it was. It's a little less so now. And I was hired as their director of cross country and track and field, and set out to take a program that had a lot of challenges and see what I could do with it, and ended up having a lot of success there. And then, let's see, boy, 2019, I guess, I resigned. I thought I was going to work for the USOPC. I had some contacts and had applied for a job there, and there were a bunch of jobs that were coming open. So I left so I wouldn't be leaving in the middle of the year. The jobs are supposed to kind of be around the Olympics, the 2020 Olympics. We moved to a tiny house with my 2 daughters and my wife in Pennsylvania on my brother-in-law's sheep farm. And 290 square feet, 2 teenage daughters. Wasn't too easy, but we thought it was just temporary till we'd be going to Colorado Springs. And then COVID hit. The Olympics were delayed. The USOPC laid off over 100 people. And then we kind of were scrambling. So my wife got a job here in Indianapolis. We kind of committed to staying here until our kids graduated from high school, and worked on some sports mental stuff. And then really my dream was to get the sports conflict stuff going, especially since that was my degree, and we'll talk more about that type of stuff. So yeah.
Boy, a lot of stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. I love to hear the story about the journeys and going all the way back to the beginning.
Mhm.
I'm actually I was born in Oregon, but grew up
Oh
in
yeah.
Washington, a
Okay.
little bit further south, Battleground, Washington.
Yeah. Right down by
Ran
Vancouver,
I
right?
ran track for Clark College 100
Oh
years ago, so I know all about that Northwest JUCO League.
yeah.
Lot of good memories from there. And then I ended up I coached at Umpqua College down
Yep.
in
Yeah.
Roseburg, Oregon,
Yep.
and so we were part of that NWAC group there. So great memories from that time.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah. Before we jump into Sport Lab, I really want to give you a chance to emphasize you not only started the Northwest program,
Yeah.
uh, started literally as a startup program, but they were national champions at the NAI level. How was that ride? Going from startup to hoisting the trophy.
Longer than I expected, and yet, especially as you think back, how blessed. I mean, because it's not easy to win a national championship anywhere, anytime. Northwest really had almost no resources. So again, kind of crazy that I would declare that I was going to win a national championship there when I started. When literally, I got hired. There was a new soccer coach, there was a new volleyball coach. There were no coaches' offices. We didn't have an athletic director. We didn't have an athletic trainer. We literally found a storage closet in the gym and ran a phone line. Somebody found a table and a chair off the scrap heap up by the maintenance shed, and that was our office. So that paints a picture of how committed to athletics they were at that time. I think even the year I won nationals, I think my pay for the year was $5,000.
Oh, yeah.
It was my whole salary, and I was working, 80 hours a week most of the year. So it was a challenge. I was young. I mean, I hadn't ever coached college, and here I am a head coach. So I had to learn the hard way. I made a lot of mistakes. The great thing is nobody cared, because they didn't have any expectations. So I was able to really learn who I was, what my philosophy of coaching was, what I wanted to do, why I was doing it, and kind of put those together, put that into recruiting, how I got the kids that I got because they had to be a good fit for the culture of the school and for my coaching style. Then install belief, which is really what I think my strength as a coach has always been. It's been in getting people to believe that they're capable of things they don't believe they're capable of, or nobody ever told them they could do. And so my teams both at Northwest and Lipscomb have had humongous PR rates because for some reason I'm able to help them believe they can do great things. And so yeah, that now it's funny because the year before we won, we went to nationals unanimously ranked first in the nation, and thought this is it. We're going to accomplish the goal I set out on day one, and we finished seventh. So not just didn't win nationals, epically bad. And but it was a great learning experience. I'd put too much pressure on myself. I'd put too much pressure on the team. There was too much focus on the result instead of the process. And even that was like a humongous learning experience that changed me. If I hadn't experienced that, um, I wouldn't have been as good a coach. Because I had to rebound from that. I had to go reach out to mentors and people and find out what do I need to do different. So but yes, amazing. When it happened, it was amazing. But I think we think more about the experiences we had as a team than actually winning because we were really focused in on the culture and just having an amazing experience, giving our best just every time, no matter what it was.
Oh yeah. Again, great lessons for our listeners there about, hey, the talent's great, but it's the culture, it's relationships, those are the things that are going to, really turn programs into winners in every sense of the word. Well, let's go and talk about your jump from coaching to founding Sports Conflict Lab. How did that happen? And share with our listeners, what is it?
Yeah, so when I was at Lipscomb, you can get a master's degree for free because you're an employee. So I'd heard about the conflict management program and thought, well, that would be cool. But again, working 80 hours a week most of the year, I chose to coach the sports of cross country and track. So there's no off season. You're always on. So you're always recruiting, you're always going to competition. So there wasn't a lot of time. So I didn't really think much of it, but I thought, well, if I ever got a master's degree, that'd be a cool degree, not knowing what it was. But then about, oh, I don't know what year, but in my career, I had two major conflicts that I dealt with. One at Northwest, and I had a really amazing, by that time, my last 3 years, we had an athletic director, and I had an athletic director named Bruce Brown, who he has a company called Proactive Coaching. He's been really active in the NAI. He was one of the helpers of creating the NAI Champions of Character program. And Bruce worked through a conflict with me when I was a young coach the right way. And I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't understanding how conflict works and stuff. Fast forward, had a big conflict, and I won't go into detail. I'll just say that I didn't have the same support, didn't have the leadership didn't necessarily understand how to work through conflict, what to do, what not to do. And there were a lot of bad decisions that escalated the conflict, made things worse, broke trust. And then from my side, I'm dealing with the conflict myself, and I just kind of ran out of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this. Well, that inspired me to go back and say, well, they have a conflict management master's degree, so why don't I take that degree and learn these skills so that I don't have to ever deal with this again? Like, I'm not sure that's a true statement because we always deal with conflict, but at least I'll know what to do. So I enrolled in the program while I was coaching and completed my master's in about a year and a half. And it was just amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing education. You start to look at the things you've done and go, okay, well, that was good and that wasn't good. And that escalated conflict and that helped it. And you start to put the pieces together that you didn't understand. You were just kind of winging it previously. So yeah, I took that program. My master's thesis was to build a course for coaches. So that was kind of the inspiration, but I still coached there another year or so, 2 years maybe after my degree. And then again, like I said, my goal was actually to work for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. But when that fell through because of COVID, I started thinking, well, I'd really like to do this. This is such a gap in sports. Experienced the gap myself. There were no resources that I could find for specifically, especially for sports conflict. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start a business. And then I thought, well, I'm not very good at promoting or marketing or advertising. I don't like self-promotion a whole lot. And so what do I do? And I thought, well, I'll write a book. That'll be a promotion. Didn't think about the fact that I'd have to promote the book, but but it was really good to write the book because it helped me to kind of get everything together about what would be most important. I actually wrote a book before the book that's published on sports conflict. I went through all my material from my master's degree. It was amazing. It had all this great scientific academic information in it. I got done. It took me about 9 months probably. I read it. It was horrible. It was boring. It was long. I thought, an 80-hour-a-week coach is not going to read this and it's not going to get much out of it. So I actually scrapped the whole book I wrote, went into about 3 months of mourning over this, and then regrouped and said, I want to write the shortest, most effective book on this subject I can possibly write. I want something that coaches can read or administrators can read quickly and that they can apply basically immediately. And so that's what this book ended up being.
Well, I want to get to the book, but can you share a little bit more about your website? The Conflict Lab. Why would our listeners want to stop by? And listeners, you definitely do want to visit the website.
Yes, I mean, Sports Conflict Lab is the website for the business. The book is to support the business. The idea is to be able to get out and really hands-on help organizations from youth sports all the way up to pro sports to really, really understand conflict and to get the basic skills so that conflict can be used for a positive instead of a negative. And that's the thing. Conflict is inevitable. Everybody has conflict. There's no exception to it. I've had people tell me, "Oh, we don't really have conflict." Yeah, you do. You just don't recognize it, which is bad. Conflict is actually really essential to success. There's all kinds of amazing things that can happen if conflict is handled correctly. And it's also obviously, and what people focus on is how destructive it can be. So the website is kind of the gateway to get a hold of me. We're going to hopefully add more and more resources on there over time. But the whole idea is to, to use the website to help people get the book so that they can gain that knowledge through that avenue, and to be able to contact us and engage with us, ask questions, get help, whatever is needed to help people, organizations in sports, outside of sports. My love is sports, so that's why it's geared this way.
All right. And the website where they can go to get the book is?
It's sportsconflictlab.com.
Okay. Sports. Say that again.
3 words, all is one though. Sportsconflictlab.com.
That's right. I had a senior moment there right in front of you.
I
All right.
I mess with it too. Like, oh, what is it?
All right. Let's go in and talk about the book. Okay. How's it organized? What are some things that, again, right now, you're talking to athletic directors and coaches across the country.
Yeah.
Let them know why they need to go and get this book.
Yeah, well, and I'll say Bruce Brown told me that because he was an athletic director, the hardest job there is athletic director, and this was before even the book and all this. And I said, well, why? He said, because it's just constant conflict. You're trying to solve conflict all the time. Such a huge part of the job. So my guess is athletic directors already understand that conflict is a major issue. And I would hope that they are looking for any way in which they can increase their skill set or increase their skill set in their coaches so that they don't have to deal with as much conflict on their end. The book is organized, it started with, I decided, well, to make a book that's more effective, I probably need to focus on a few items. What are the most important tools? So I kind of went through all my stuff and I thought, what would I use? Would I use in any sports conflict or any conflict? And so that's kind of the basis of it. It starts with, or it's the heart of it is the 5 best tools to deal with conflict. And by that, I mean stuff that anybody can use immediately. So that was the basis. I built out the first part to talk about what conflict is, to explain more in depth why it is valuable and how important it is. It's not something, I mean, people avoid it. People are afraid of it. That's because they lack skill, I think. If you understand conflict and if you have the skill set to deal with it, I'm not saying you're excited about it, but you can now reframe it and look at it as a tool for things to be better. And you don't have to be as afraid of it in terms of its destructive abilities. So I talk about that kind of stuff in the first part. I have what I consider a really important chapter on culture, because I believe that conflict defines culture. You can state your culture. Here's what we are. This is our culture. This is what we stand for. Conflict is going to test that. Conflict is going to you're going to learn if what you said is what you really are based on how you deal with the conflicts that inevitably come and arise in your culture, the conflicts that attempt to change your culture from what you've said it is to something else. So I talk about that quite a bit. And I love that chapter, and there's probably going to be a lot more we're going to do on that. Go into the 5 concepts, and then I talk about some other things like power imbalance, because that's an issue. If you're in a position of power, it's going to be less likely for the people under you to want to deal or address conflict with you because they're afraid of things like playing time or opportunities or being a part of the program or things like that. So I kind of talk about that and give leaders tips on things they can do to make that more likely to be able to handle conflict and for people to bring up conflict with them so that it can be resolved positively. And I talk about mindset and some other stuff that's dear to my heart and certainly applicable in conflict.
You talk about culture and you talk about conflicts is inevitable.
Yeah.
With athletic directors, they're working directly with coaches, usually indirectly with student athletes, but then this other group, the parents gets
Yeah.
involved, which
Yeah.
is, most often a direct conflict. And we're big on tools, obviously, the Athletic Director's Toolbox series of books. Um, what are some, just a couple of tools that you can share right now in the podcast for our listeners that can help with that inevitable conflict with parents? And let me throw another wrench in there. Does it have to be inevitable?
Conflict is absolutely inevitable because humans are humans. We know no two humans see the world the same way. Everybody comes at it from their own experience, their own eyes, their own what their brain is telling them. So conflict is absolutely inevitable. And that, again, that's not a bad thing. Now, if we're talking about conflict on a smaller level, inevitable. Conflict that turns into something gigantic, that is avoidable, potentially. It depends on the people involved. And that's the thing with relationships and conflict is you're relying on more than one person to be able to make things work. But no, yeah, at some level, conflict is inevitable. And if conflict isn't dealt with correctly at a small level, it's more likely to become something big and explosive and dangerous. And that's why the tools are so important. The tools that I highlight, I'll tell you, number one is emotion. Um, no good decisions happen in emotion. And so that's probably the toughest thing because conflict tends to bring out emotion. People are upset, they have a problem, they have a disagreement, they don't like the way they've been, you can go into whatever conflict could be about. It tends to create emotion. And as emotion goes up, logic goes down. And as emotion goes up and logic goes down, good decision making uh, exits the building. So I really talk a lot in there about ways in which to deal with emotion. I think awareness is the first thing, but there's also some tricks, some things you can work on to keep emotion down, to help emotion in the other person. Sometimes one person isn't emotional, the other person is. So that's not I mean, that's normal, but there's things that you can do to try to help somebody else bring their emotion down so that you can get to a good positive resolution. I say this in the book, and this is just the truth. You could master every other conflict skill, and if you can't control your emotion or influence another person's emotion, you're not going to resolve conflict. I mean, it's absolutely a door that you have to get through. Communication always is an issue, but I think in particular, active listening, and that's something that honestly I kind of struggled with. I think when we get in positions of power and coaching, and we know our subject, we want to kind of skip the process and go right to here's what you need to do, or here's how things need to be, and that doesn't really work. And so, active listening skills, something I've worked on very, very hard, are essential. Really hearing people, letting them know you're hearing them, being genuine in it. And so I go through active listening and some other aspects of communication. Also, I talk about like written communication and all the things that are missing there, and how careful you have to be on that. And I'll throw in a third one out of the five, but the third one is below the line, and it's a little complex to explain, but it's the difference between issues and interests. So issues are what somebody says that their problem is. I'm upset about this. But a lot of times that's not really what they're upset about. They're upset about things that are not spoken. They sometimes don't know what those are, or sometimes they do, but they're embarrassed, or they feel they'd be weak if they express those. And if you stay on the issues, you may think you're resolving a conflict, but if the issue wasn't really the problem, it was things below, and I give a ton of examples in the book, then you're actually not going to resolve the conflict. The problem's going to continue on. And I use an example, I'll just hit it real quick here, but an athlete asks for a scholarship increase. So you think, well, they want more money. Well, what if the scholarship increase isn't about money, it's about respect? You could disrespect them, give them an increase. They could be more upset. You could have a bigger conflict. Or you might not have the scholarship money to give to them, but because respect is the below the line, the interest down here, if you address that, that may solve the whole problem that they're asking for a scholarship increase, but by giving them respect, something they really, really want, you can move on and the conflict is resolved. That's an oversimplification, but that's a kind of an example. And I used below the line actually not just to help resolve conflict. Once I understood the concept, it kind of helped me understand people better because like sometimes people do things and you're like, why in the world would somebody do that? If you start thinking about people in terms of below the line and start looking at their life and learning more about them, which this also encourages to learn more about people, you start to go, oh, okay, I can see why they might do that. I don't necessarily agree, but I can understand it more. And so it puts you in a better mindset with people.
Oh, great stuff. Great examples too. And again, going back to the idea of, emotions, a lot of times, whether even if it's not a face-to-face discussion with a parent, you get that 16 paragraph email. You can just feel the emotion as you're reading it, and then you look at the timestamp and see it was sent at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And again, just so critical and so critical that the athletic director really needs to, try to keep the emotion out of it and be that problem solver rather than the person who's going to pour gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, and to that point, I would encourage, if at all possible, and I know it's tough, especially with parents. It's probably not tough for high school parents and coach and athletic directors because they're in the same neighborhood. In college, it's a little more challenging because your parents can be anywhere in the world. But I would encourage not to respond to the email, but instead set up a meeting that's face to face, because when people are in a certain emotional state, especially, and you do written responses, they're reading into everything you write. They're hearing your words not as you intend them to be. And or a lot of times we respond immediately to an email or something like that, and we're emotional at that moment because we've just been insulted or we feel like we've been insulted, or there's a lot of things going on. And so to respond immediately in writing is a really good way to make things worse. And I know it's challenging and it takes time and it's hard to set up a personal meeting, but that other aspect of communication is essential. And the time you save by responding to the email, you're going to lose if the conflict escalates and you have to deal with it over a longer period of time at a much deeper level.
You're absolutely right, and that was me for a lot of my career. You'd see that email, you'd get that voice message, and you just immediately want to fire
Yep.
back. And
Yep.
my boss, my head of school at the final school where I was the AD before I retired, gave me a great suggestion. He said, when you get that email, and it's going to come,
Yep.
um, don't email back because first of all those paragraphs, what are you going to talk about? Okay, whatever message you wanted, it's not one problem. He said, call them up.
Yeah.
Just call them up and say, hey, Bill, I just got your email. What's up? And let them, talk to you. Now it's voice to voice. It's over the phone, so it's not going to be hopefully that confrontational like a face to face. But it's timely. You're giving them that other chance, an additional chance to vent. And a lot of times they vented while they were typing the email. And so now you might get a truer discussion. And I found, it didn't work every single time, but I found that to be a very effective way of dealing with that inevitable conflict.
Yep. And I'm speaking from experience too. I hit a lot of replies really quick and thought, you hear the words in your head, you know what you're trying to say, but they don't hear the words in your head. And so, yeah, I'd be like, it would get worse. And I'd be like, but I didn't say that. But I said this, and it could be interpreted that way if somebody's in a negative state of mind. And so, yeah, phone, better, sometimes face to face, even better, just because you lose certain things in communication from, body posture and eye contact and things like that are important to our relationships and to our communication. So the more you can add tone and inflection, that's in the phone. Being able to respond immediately and help guide through, that's on the phone. And then in person, you get even more. You get the visual, the eye contact, the body language, which if you're not taking care of those properly, make it worse So that's why you have to be aware and be really on top of all those things for yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great, great stuff. Bill, the book sounds tremendous. The website's already great. A lot of resources. One more time, if our listeners want to find out more, they want to order the book, they want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
So the website, again, is sportsconflictlab.com. The book can be purchased on there. We've got a pile of them here that we got from the publisher. It can also be purchased on Amazon, and our publisher, Coach's Choice Publishing, also has it. But probably the easiest ways right now are Amazon or from our website. And I'm happy to answer questions or anything. My email is on there, and contact form and all that stuff. So.
Well, thanks again for taking the time to share with our listeners on the podcast. All the best with the book going forward. And we're going to have to get you back on the podcast maybe later this spring and summer for an update.
I'd love to. Thank you so much, Jake.
Well, we want to say thanks to our listeners and remind them that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Tech Tuesday just about every week and just about every day. We try to share stories along with some best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. And before we go, of course, we want to give a shout out to our great sponsors. Let's say thanks to Home Campus. Scheduling, rosters, results. Go to homecampus.com. Does it better, does it faster than all the other platforms. Beacon Creative Wall of Fame. Vital Signs Wall of Fame has been bringing schools' legacies to life for a decade. Check out Beacon Creative Wall of Fame. Booster Hub. Booster Hub's the #1 booster software platform. Take your booster club to the next level. Go to boosterhub.com. Athletic surveys. At my school, we use surveys for everything, and so should you. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. How about Huddle? As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com for more information. Hometown, it's a game changer for ticketing, for websites, you name it. Go to hometown.com. Mention the podcast. Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Check them out. And finally, we want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Let their team help you become a social media marketing guru. That's Gipper.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.